Hello, everyone. Matt Malatesta here. This is On My Whistle, powered by VYPE Media. Okay, high school sports across the country. This is what we talk about. We got two massive treats for you today. Number one is Jeff Ellison. Jeff Ellison is the head coach at Permian High School. Permian High School is the famous backdrop of the show and book Friday Night Lights, and also the new show Landman, which has Billy Bob Thornton and John Hamm. It's on Paramount. I can't stay up at night every night watching this show. I got to get some sleep. It's so good. You got to watch Landman. But also, Friday Night Lights is doing a reboot for TV. So he is the head coach over there. And the backdrop is his high school, which is so awesome to see. He travels across the country. He's wearing his MOJO shirt. Everybody knows MOJO. Everybody knows Odessa Permian High School as it relates to high school sports. And also, we'll be talking with Willie Gaston, the head coach of one of the top teams in the country of North Shore High School. They were loaded this season. They're still in the playoffs, but their national signing day was filled with Ohio State, LSU, Colorado, Wyoming, Stephen F. Austin, ULL, Pittsburgh, Arkansas. They were loaded with talent. We're going to talk to him about what the business of high school recruiting is about these days. All right, so stay tuned. We'll also talk about who won the National Signing Day across the country. This is Matt Malatesta. You're watching On My Whistle. What's up, everybody? Matt Malatesta here. This is On My Whistle. We go into West Texas, the brand of high school football internationally. Let's just call it that. Permian High School is home base for high school football as it relates to Friday Night Lights. We're going to talk to Coach Jeff Ellison, the head coach out there. We're going to talk about a myriad of things about what it's like now out there, what Landman has come through town, the big TV show that has come through town, Billy Bob Thornton. We'll talk about that. But Coach, welcome. Just tell me about when you get the job at Permian. Were you not surprised, but you said this earlier. This is basically the ending point for people's job. This is the lifetime job to get, and you're super young.
Yeah, I was at the time I was 38. And I tell people all the time, I'm very lucky, very blessed for this to be my first head coaching job. It was kind of a crazy story how it ended up this way. I ended up here. This is going to be our 12th year out here. But 7 years ago in July, right before coaching school, the guy that I came out here with, Coach Blake Felt, called me and some of the coaches up on a Sunday and asked us to come up to the field house, which was kind of strange for that time of the year. And he said, and that going into that season, we were loaded. We were projected to have a really good year. And Coach Phillips said, guys, I got something to tell you. This is something I've been thinking about for a long time. And he's from Midland. That's where he graduated high school. And he got in a call that he was going to be named the athletic director at Midland ISD. And again, this is a week or two before coaching school 7 years ago. And so myself, our offensive coordinator at the time, Coach Fortune, and our defensive coordinator that's still with us, Vance Washington, they called all three of us up that Monday, the next day, and interviewed us. And so I was fortunate enough to get the interim job. And that season we went up and we won district that first year. And I still remember this today. Our athletic director called me over pregame. So round one of playoffs, it was a home game that year, and the AD and the superintendent said, "Congratulations, you're now the official head coach." This is going in. This is pregame of the first playoff game that year. So that was a pretty different way to get your first head coaching job.
Well, what's cool is now, I mean, you got the helmet in the background. That's an iconic helmet if you're into sports at all. Of course, the book comes out many moons ago, and it kind of it was a little controversial, I guess, and some people in the Permian area is like, oh my gosh, they didn't really tell the real story. But Did they tell the real story back in the day when Friday Night Lights first came out?
Well, I mean, obviously, I've read the book and I wasn't here. Yes, there are some controversy behind it. Um, but as far as just from what I remember in the book, just the people and the passion about the program, that's true. And that's still prevalent today.
The Booby Miles, is Booby Miles still hanging around? The legendary running back where there was such a big story around him and he got injured and oh my gosh, your heart just went out for this guy. Are any of these guys still around?
That's one of the number one questions that I get is about Boobie Miles. I met him. Uh, they their class had a pregame deal. They did. Brian Chavez, I believe, is still in town. It had a law practice at one time. I and there's some other guys that are around. One of the kids' dads, his kid came and played for us about 3 or 4 years ago. So there's a few of them still around.
So now you're there. You showed me a picture a little while ago. You know, Donald Trump shows up. You get to meet him. He gets you a signed helmet. Um, the brand lives on. But what are some of the cooler things that you've been able to uh, be involved with the brand?
Well, I mean, you mentioned it. Meeting President Trump, that's up there on the list. Anytime you get to meet the President of the United States, that's something pretty special. That was a great day for our kids and our program. But there's a lot of other things that in the community that we get to do because of the program and giving back to the community. Um, there's some cool stories about the one I like to tell a lot is we had a father and a son kind of take a pilgrimage out here, and they're from Sweden. They, kind of a typical story. They saw the movie, read the book, and bucket list was they wanted to come to a Permian Midland League game or Midland Legacy game, and so they came out here and did that. We're up here on the weekends working, and you look outside, and we've got a giant championship sign outside of our office, and there were people will drive by and just take pictures in front of it all the time. So that's pretty special.
So now this season, y'all make the postseason. Just talk about this year's team. And do you feel like these guys are always having to play for that mojo, play for the people that came before them, play for that brand?
Um, I, a, a part of it, I do, and that's a special thing to have with the history with the program, the people that have come through here. You like that pressure. You want to be at a program where that expectation is to win and to have that legacy live on. But that's always a constant discussion that we have with our kids year in and year out. Is that you got to block out the noise, positive or negative, because you're going to get it either way. And our kids do a good job of that every year. I thought this year's team did an outstanding job. I thought we overachieved in some areas going into the district. We hit some road bumps throughout in our season, but I was very proud of our guys overall this season.
So now the Friday night blows through. They're getting ready to restart the show also, which is gonna be awesome. But
You told me that. I didn't know that.
yeah, that's gonna be awesome. Landman, I'm telling you what, all of this Paramount Plus TV shows, I can't go to sleep because all of the shows are amazing. Now they have Landman, Billy Bob Thornton, super massive production comes to town again and is on your campus droning, and the backdrop is Odessa, Midland, Permian High School football. Tell us a story about that. What was that like?
So that was a pretty special deal. So last spring, well, really this happened about this time last year. We get a call from the production company and said that they wanted to shoot a scene out here. So we had to get permission from our school district and get all that stuff lined out. And really, we didn't hear about them for a long time. They said it was Landman. They kind of gave us the backdrop of the show, and Billy Bob Thornton was in it, and John Hamm, and we're down the kind of list of stars that were going to be in it. And so everybody we really didn't say anything for a good bit because we didn't know what really was going to be going on. But then so spring rolls around, and about a month before spring ball starts, then the talks start to get very serious about what we're going to do. Coach, can we do this? Can we move the date? They wanted us to move the time of our spring game, this, that, and the other. I said, no, guys, all this stuff is kind of set. So anyways, we get everything lined out, and then the day before, about, I don't know, probably close to 1,000 people come in and start their job. The first thing they did I thought was impressive was that out at Ratliff at the stadium, they changed all the signage over to where it was just for Permian, because normally it just says ECISD and with concession stand and signs and this, that, and the other. So they came in and in one day changed everything over to a Permian uh, theme of it. And so our fans got a big kick out of that. And so as far as the day goes, we had a production meeting. It was kind of, coach, where are the kids going to come in? Are they going to come off the bus? We may do a camera over here. Then they walked us through the scenes as far as what they were going to do, where they were going to be on the sideline. Um, they were wanting to use some of our cheerleaders uh, to flirt with the actor during the scene. I said, guys, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't want to deal with the angry dad on that. So, but just some, interesting conversations with that. And as far as the game goes, so everything gets set up. They've got semi trailers. They've got trailers with their trucks, the Landman trucks, the cars. They've got a drone that was as big as a car, and so there's all types of things out there. And as far as the game goes, we get there. The day's been beautiful. It's a great day. And of course, about 30 minutes before we kick off, a storm comes in and it drops about 40 degrees and starts raining. And so everything was on pause for about an hour and a half for our spring game. But then once it popped up, the one thing they did ask for was, I don't think it was in the show, they asked for us to run out of the sign like we would normally do in a game, which we don't do in the spring game. So we kind of Hollywooded that up and did 2 takes, running out of the sign, came back and did it again. Um, they were very nice to my family. That they show I have 2 little girls. They could let them get back behind the monitors and kind of see the behind the scenes stuff of what they were doing. So that was fun. And it was a great deal for our community, a great buzz. We had a bunch of extras that they employed for that day for some of the scenes in the concession stand. Also, at the end, when we were finally finished, then they had some more crowd work scenes that they did. And they were, tell everybody to yell at one point and wave their rally flags and things like that. So it was great for our kids. They had a great time. And then at the end, one of the production guys came up to me, and it was funny because he goes, BBT would like to talk to you and the team here in a second. And it kind of caught me off guard. I said, who, what? He said, Billy Bob, BBT. I said, oh, okay. So he came and talked to our guys in the locker room, took pictures with them, was very nice, very cordial, took pictures with my family. Uh, so it was a fun day.
It's just another day at Permian for you, man. I mean, you rubbing elbows with movie stars and having your place to be a movie set. But what's funny is high school coaches hate change. They don't like to be super flexible in their schedules. And I know that dating back when you were at North Shore High School back here in Houston, Texas. But, um, you know, talk about the rivalry of Permian and Odessa, Midland, Permian. Just talk about how big that rivalry is still in that community.
It is. It really is. And it's something special to be a part of. Being at North Shore, being with a great program like that. We've always had some very big games, especially in the playoffs. But especially within the district, we really didn't have anything like that the way it is right here out here. Versus Odessa High, we're going to have 20,000 plus people at the stadium. Um, we had a difficult time this year, just our football team getting the bus to the stadium with all the traffic and everything else, hours and hours before the game. And then the rivalry with the Midland schools. I mean, that's special. Our district out here, it's a dogfight week in and week out. But just that extra buzz that week, it's great for the community and the fans. As far as the stress with our kids and our coaches, again, like I said, you welcome that. You want that pressure of upholding that tradition year in and year out, week in and week out.
I could just visualize it. And I saw some of on your Twitter of like police escorts and, buses taking you down to places that you play and the crowd that just follows it. It's wild. It's like an SEC game in a small West Texas town. That's just how I envision it. Um, Now, did they get it right as it relates to Landman? I mean, people, that's an industrial area. You've got these kids, or these kids, play high school football, but right after high school football, they could be in that oil patch. Did they get that kind of right?
Uh, for some part of it, we had our senior exit meetings today, and I've got seniors that there are a handful of kids that said they're going to go, to a trade school and do some things like that. But a lot of them are going to Texas Tech or going to Dallas or going to different places. So it's not just everybody just stays here. I think a lot of our kids, like everybody else, once they get done with high school, they want to grow, they want to go some other places. But there's obviously a very large opportunity for them to go into the oil field or go into some aspect of it, because I've told people this before, as far as it's not just the oil field. There's so many different things, different companies that go along with the oil field. It could be that they make a drill bit and this is the only nut or washer or screw that my company builds this for that one thing that goes in that has to have to produce the oil. So there's so many different avenues. It's not just the oil field part of it, but that has something to do with it that you have the opportunity to have a career with.
Craziest story of you just walking around with a MOJO shirt, maybe not where you live, but out on a vacation or something.
A private person, and so if we go out of town, I wouldn't wear my Permian gear. But this is again our 12th year out here, so my wife and I were talking, and we just said, you know what, let's be proud of it. We're always proud of it. So we had gone out. Her family's from Dallas, so we're out in the DFW area, and I had my MOJO sweater on, and we're just walking down the street, and I don't know, probably 5 or 6 different times you just hear "Go MOJO" just from across the street out in Dallas, or it's just crazy. And I've had guys come up to me and ask about Booby Miles if I knew him, and just what's it like out there, and always just the curiosity of what it's really like to live out here. And just for everybody, I know the perception as far as it's West Texas, the desert, and this, that, and the other. But it's a great place. It's a great community. I've been in a lot of very storied, historical, and successful programs, and I've been very lucky with that. But this is just a great community, great people. The people that I work with, the staff, the administration is a great. The city is very welcoming and very kind people, and they're hard workers, blue collar people. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. People try and emulate Friday Night Lights with their own program. They're trying to emulate what they're like, oh my gosh, they have that vision that they've seen and what they see today, and they're trying to make that in their own community. Port Nature's Groves in Southeast Texas is kind of a good example, but it's like it's community. I mean, that is what it is. It's about community. Is the community super connected, and football brings them all together? Is that basically the story there?
It is, and I'm glad you brought this up, because the stories that I've heard of people like to and always ask me like, what's different from back then that is now. Well, obviously, I mean, I wasn't here, but one thing that I've learned from is that back in the '80s, in the '90s, when they're winning all the state championships, that like people do now, is that coaches came out here for the off season and, studied and talked, and the staff, Coach Wilkins at the time, was very welcoming to that. So other programs came to Odessa to see, okay, y'all are winning all these state championships. What are y'all doing? And so and I've, again, Coach Washington, our defensive coordinator, he played here for Coach Wilkins. So he was living it when people were coming in. He's like, I remember being in high school, he would tell me of all these staffs coming in and seeing what we were doing, and then taking that blueprint and then taking it to their programs and having that success all over the state of Texas. And then you start to look at other programs as well, as far as that coaching tree. I believe that this is fact, as far as one of the coaches, I think early on, when Allen, they were North Shore, I'm sorry, they were Permian coaches. And so you see that kind of throughout the state of when programs really start going, was some way, somehow, either they came out to Odessa and kind of got the blueprint, or there was a coach or coach's staff that had some type of Permian background. So I think, and this is just my opinion, but I think Coach Wilkins and those guys deserve a lot of credit for a lot of successes throughout the state of Texas, because what they did during that time here at Permian.
Finally, when we go there, when we get out there, where do we need to eat? What is your spot to eat in
There's a
Odessa?
lot of great spots. A lot of good Mexican food out here, but one of the spots, one of my favorites right now, is Brantley Creek Barbecue. Shout out to them; they do a great job. They started as a food truck, but they've got a store now, and that's some good barbecue. I'll put it up there with anybody.
All right. So, hey, this is Jeff Ellison, the head coach at Permian, home of Landman, which is on Paramount right now, and also Friday Night Lights. It is the brand. If you're a geek for high school sports or sports in general, you must see the movie. You must see the TV show, and it's being rebooted as a TV show coming up soon. It's going to be amazing, Coach. We need somebody like Tom Cruise to play you. We need somebody Bradley Cooper could be Jeff Ellison on the new show. That's what I'm looking for.
I'll leave that up to you, Matt.
All right. Hey, this is Matt. We'll see y'all at the games. All right. So then we're going to North Shore High School. Willie Gass is one of the top coaches in the country, with one of the top teams in the country, and one of the top signing days in the country we just covered. And Willie Gaston also discusses that it's become a business decision in the college you signed to. National football program, max preps, first signing day, kids going all over the country. What can you say about this North Shore program that hasn't been said?
Well, I think, I don't think people understand how important these kids take their grades seriously to better do this. And then, the better sign a scholarship, there's a lot of things that go into it. You got to be a good player. And one, you better have grades. And these kids have done that, both sides of that. They're in the classroom and they understand the importance of the classroom. And they understand the importance of making plays on the field. At the end of the day, every player that's sitting up here and signing a scholarship, they earn that scholarship. It's not a thing that we give them. And it's not nothing, all I can do is just, let them go out there and do what they're supposed to do. But I'm so proud of these guys that better live out their dreams.
Just think about, you got Colorado, you got Ohio State, you got LSU, you got ULL, you got Wyoming. They're all over there. This is a place where coaches from all over the country come to. Why?
I think they understand that our coaching staff does such a great job of coaching these kids. They're going to get a product of kids that understand how to be in the weight room. They understand how to watch film. They understand all those things that you have to do at the next level. And I think, that's why the coaches come here. And they're all talented players. So it's good to see that it's kids going all over the country. And, we're not just here in Texas. They're all over, and they get to go live a different life and see new things and experience life. Because at the end of the day, after this, it's about to get real for them because they're becoming adults. So, again, it's good for them.
This has become a business decision. It's not just moving the hats around and for fun. This is a business decision where NIL, where the portal, where going to the NFL is now at play. Is it a huge decision now? Is it a different decision?
I think it's a different decision because some people are going to make decisions based on financial reasons and financial gains. It's not very good for the product. I guess I guess I'm a little old school. I wish it wasn't such a business decision because then again, this game is made to be fun. So now it's truly business decisions, and once things becomes more business, then at each level the coaches are going to make decisions they got to make based on business moves. So if that means you're a person that's not cutting it now, you probably won't be there very long. And our kids, got to understand that. That's why I try to preach to them, like, you got to be on time, you got to take care of your business because they will get rid of you because they're paying you now. So it's one of those things we hopefully, that the game is, they find a way to figure all that stuff out. I'm glad I'm here at the high school level right now.
Okay, hey, two great interviews. One, Permian, the international brand of MOJO, and Coach Jeff Ellison, and North Shore's head coach Willie Gaston really lays it out about National Signing Day. He had a bumper class, one of the nation's top football teams. He had kids go all over the country. Okay, so let's talk National Signing Day. Huge day. This was like Christmas for some and tax day for others. Paying the tax are the college football coaches. All right, Matt Malatesta, Jackson DePasquale on my whistle. We're just going to talk, who did what? Who won the day of National Signing Day as it relates to colleges? And we'll start west, way west. Oregon is the #1 team in the country. But there's no players in Oregon. Honestly, there's no players in Oregon. So what Dan Lanning has to do is he's got to go recruit nationally, which can be very difficult. Granted, they have a great brand. Granted, they have Nike. They have all the cool uniforms, and they're good. So, and they're in a big-time conference now. So, but just if you look at the players that they got DeCorian Moore, the #1 receiver from Texas. They got Dorian Brew. They also he's a cornerback from the state of Texas. They got recruiting Alabama. They're recruiting Florida.
Hawaii too.
Hawaii, Maryland. They recruited Michigan. So they've got kids all over the place because they can't really recruit Oregon because there's not a volume of players. They also recruit Florida very well. And that dates back to the time of Lanning being in the SEC, especially at Georgia. Oregon, who else did well on the West, did you think?
Yeah, on the West Coast, you look at Colorado as well. They did really well. They were able to flip Juju Lewis about a month ago to this class, which helped add some firepower, having a 4 or 5 or one of the top quarterbacks in the country who had been committed to USC, flips his commitment to Colorado. Then you got Quanell Farrakhan Jr. from North Shore in Houston. He's going to be a big-time playmaker. Then they go and get the big-time North Crowley wide receiver who's been blowing up this year. So, Colorado's put together a nice little class. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, they had about 5 commitments in one day or in that kind of weekend span. So, you look at Colorado, they're another team that did really well. USC, though they lost Juju Lewis, they were able to flip Hassan Longstreet, a Cali kid from Texas A&M to USC. I think that also played a factor. After Juju Lewis decommitted, then USC kind of already lined up who they were going to take. So Hassan Longstreet, he flips to USC. But, I mean, you look at those 3 schools, those are kind of the main guys that run that kind of West Coast recruiting, especially in Cali. You look at all the California kids that are there. So those are the 3 that kind of did really well in the West Coast.
So now we go to the SEC. The SEC basically dominated recruiting as they do because why? Because there's so many players there. #1 was University of Texas. We'll talk about University of Texas class, followed by Alabama, followed by Georgia. So it's kind of the rich get richer, but Texas had Jonah Williams, the big-time safety from Galveston Ball High School. They recruited Texas very well. Anything that stood out from you about those 3 particular schools being Texas, Bama, Georgia?
I think you look at Texas, they recruited really well in state. Obviously, we touched on Jonah Williams. They got a few other guys from the city of Houston. But you look at what they did out of state, going to go get their quarterback from Alabama. He's a high profile prospect. So Texas did really well. I really like the class they put together. They didn't really have necessarily a ton of big men, which is typically what you see in the SEC classes, but they recruited very well, and I expect them to recruit well in the portal as well. They did that last year, and it really helped them out. You look at Alabama. Alabama, a lot of people were kind of questioning when Coach moved over from Washington to Alabama, but he still has. I mean, you look at what Ryan Williams did this year in the SEC as a 17-year-old who reclassifies, graduated early, plays. He had one of the best plays in college football this year against Georgia. So Alabama at number 2, that's just kind of on par for them, and it's a good start for Coach in this new kind of era that's starting there in Tuscaloosa. Georgia, we know Georgia is going to recruit very well. Kirby Smart has always been able to recruit, and especially on the defensive side of the ball. So not really too shocked there, but he's going to put together another class as another team that you could see a lot of freshmen coming in and getting some playing time.
Okay, so out of the top 10 classes, top 10 in the country in college football, 7 came from the SEC, which is mind-blowing. Texas, Bama, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Auburn had a great class. So it's like, holy cow. But I also was with you. I was super convinced that Kalen DeBoer, the new coach at Alabama, was going to be able to translate into recruiting for Alabama. They really stubbed their toe as the season went, losing some big games. And they've had a lot of kids in the portal, a ton of kids in the portal. We'll get to the portal next. But it's interesting to see that the brand of Bama continues to build. Georgia, what they do, Kirby Smart, seems like a guy you just run through a wall for to play for, which he really is kind of that guy. LSU lost 2 5-stars. Number 1 was Decorian Moore from Duncanville, the receiver, went to Oregon, but that was ways back. But then you had Bryce Underwood, the quarterback, who was locked up, the number 1 player and the number 1 quarterback in the country. He goes to Michigan. Then you also have Cade Phillips, and he goes to Texas. And Brian Kelly talks a lot about, look, this is a money game. It's all about the money you can raise to recruit. And that's where it's going. And I have I've got some philosophies on that we'll touch on in a minute too. But in the Midwest, here's the Midwest. Ohio State and Michigan. No shock there. Ohio State, what did you do? How did you think they filled needs?
I think they filled needs. I think you bring in a guy like Devin Sanchez from North Shore, 5-star, number 1 corner in the country. That's a kid who could play right away. Once he gets to campus, they got Tavian St. Clair, the quarterback. He'll be a solid piece in that offense going forward. And then just overall, you look at this Ohio State class, they recruited across the country very well. And it started off with Devin Sanchez, really. He's kind of the leader of this pack, like trying to get these guys all joined together in this class. And they've got a really solid class, though they're not I don't think they're in the top 5, but you look at the class overall and it's a good class.
Very good class. And the beauty is Ohio has high school football too. That's pretty solid. And they have some neighboring states that they can pull from. And Ryan Day is kind of a cool coach to go play for while they can't win the big one against Michigan, which is another thing. But now they're in the playoffs. The beauty of the playoffs is this. It will translate next year, but because these 12 schools get so much airtime over the next month, that's basically a commercial for these schools as it relates to recruiting. And they're not having to pay for it, A, and they're getting paid for it, B, because they're getting money to play in the playoff. And as they advance, they get more money. So you're going to see people like maybe SMU in the next couple of years kind of bumps up because they're becoming a national brand. Clemson does what they do. They just recruit high school players, which I respect Dabo Swinney for doing that, and they don't do the portal. But you've got Indiana. Where does Indiana go to? They start stealing players from Ohio State and Michigan. Penn State, you got a cluster up there in the Midwest that's kind of building those 4 teams that make the playoff. I think they're going to get really a good 2026 class because of the branding they're getting, on TV. The SEC is going to get theirs for sure. You got other schools that kind of got left out. It does hurt. It does hurt. Okay, so then let's go. Anybody? I mean, that's basically you have Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, and 7 SEC schools. That's all it is in the top 10. I think it's not changing, but I do find it fascinating that how dominant the SEC is in recruiting, and you can see that in their play, and you can see that as we get to the NFL draft, which maybe we'll talk about in the next couple of months, about where these kids are coming from in the NFL draft, or where they coming from in high school. Okay, so now we pivot to the portal and how it affects high school recruiting. How much does it affect high school recruiting?
The portal affects high school recruiting, I think, more than anything. There's a video, and I can't remember what school it was. It was put out on Twitter, and it's a coach talking to high school kids saying, basically, we're only taking 10 high school kids in this class. And if you're not on that board of kids, basically, I want to come here because we're going to take kids out of the portal that have playing experience. And that's just kind of how the game's grown, or how it's developed over the past few years. And you look at a team like Texas. Texas is an example. Quinn Ewers, transfer quarterback. Matthew Golden, who's one of the top wide receivers, transfer wide receiver. Isaiah Bond, transfer wide receiver. You look across the country, though, it's all like that. You have transfers all over the place. And that's
okay. Let me see. Heisman Trophy. Who is in the Heisman Trophy? Hunter. Travis Hunter.
Transfer from Jackson State.
Yep. Gabriel from Oregon.
Transfer from Oklahoma, and before that, UCF.
Okay. Then you've got Cam Ward.
Transferred from Wazoo, was at the JUCO level before that, I think.
And there was a fourth.
And then Ashton Genty, but I think Genty has been at Boise State the entire time.
But he's a guy that was not really recruited heavily coming out of high school, and gets to Boise State and finds his spot to stay. And they did a great job in developing him. And the beauty is they found a diamond in the rough that nobody wanted, and he explodes onto the scene and is in the Heisman Trophy Final Four going to New York City, dude. It's crazy. So the trend, like you just said, is high school. If you're a high school player, just get somewhere. It really doesn't matter where you get, even if it's a 1AA, D2, FCS, BCS, but be prepared. Keep your bags packed, dog, because it's getting ready. Speaking of dog, look at the cash cam right here. Cash cam. Speaking of that, keep your bags packed because you're going somewhere else.
Yeah. And
if you perform well, you're going up a level. If you perform and you're not getting on the field, you're going portaling down.
Well, I think you can go either way, but it's crazy. You'll look at the portal right now. There's kids that have not seen the field at all that'll hit the portal and land somewhere big because of what they were in high school. Like if you were a 5-star prospect coming out of high school and you hit the portal, you're still going to get something. Like something's going to come out, even if you have no tape whatsoever. It's just the fact that, in the portal, if you can get anything with any type of playing experience, whether that's at practice, whether that is during the spring game, whatever it is, you've experienced the college atmosphere or what the college football lifestyle is already like. So they'd rather take a shot on a kid like that than a kid coming out of high school. And it's just kind of crazy with how it's going right now. Scholarships, I believe, were cut down, or the total number of players you have been cut down, and there might be, I think there could be close to 15 to 20,000 players in the transfer portal.
with nowhere to go.
Yes, with nowhere to go, hoping they can get something. And it's the flip side, the bad side about the transfer portal. Not everybody is going to have a home
No.
at the end of the day. And then you're stuck with, where do I go from here? So
That is 100% correct. And, you know, it's stock exchange, right? Just how you said, it's based on what you've done, you can go up. What you have not done, you can go down. What is your potential? People buy millions of stocks and bonds with potential. And if you have that potential, you might not have played, but you have the college experience. You're kind of a grown up now, and now you're more of a polished player than a high school player, because high school player hasn't gotten on campus, gone to class, been in the
I mean,
workouts and things of that nature as it relates to the college life. So we're going to touch on this a ton, and it's super interesting, and it's a massive trend. The portal, some say, is killing high school recruiting. I believe it is killing high school recruiting. I'm not sure how they get it back on track. The COVID situation is kind of cycled out, so you can't really blame, oh, you had a COVID 5th year, you have a COVID 9th year. That's kind of cycled out. But the portal is really, really affecting. You talk to any high school coach across the country, it's affecting high school recruiting like nothing ever has.
And I think it is, but I think also for high school kids, and this is a message to high school kids, if you're still waiting on that big one to commit to, but you've got offers from solid schools, whether it's a lower level school than you want to go commit, sign, go play. Because if you can get tape, it doesn't matter if you're wherever you are. There's a kid at FIU right now who just hit the portal and is going to have over 30 plus offers from D1 programs.
That's Florida International.
Do you think out of high school he thought, oh, I'm going to go to FIU, that's my dream school? Maybe not. Maybe it was. But he got there, got playing time, put together nice tape. Now he's going to hit the portal, and he's going to portal up to somewhere big for his last 1 or 2 years. That is the route everybody needs to be looking at to take, because I'll sit there and there'll be kids that have solid offers that won't commit, and then they got to go JUCO. And now JUCO, it's tough to make it out of JUCO nowadays. You're not seeing a lot of guys make it out of JUCO nowadays, because basically the JUCO level has now moved up to the kind of low group of 5 teams. Yeah. That is the new JUCO. So my advice, if you have offers from a solid program, you like the staff there, you can get on the field early, go there, play, get some tape. If you want to portal up and you have the tape to do it, do it.
And the NIL is another thing. We'll talk about that in weeks to come, because we're running a little short on time. But I tell you what, the recruiting game has changed, and it's not just football. Baseball, the portal has 15,000 people, baseball college kids in it. So volleyball is a massive, you see a lot of movement, and now they've got these pro leagues. But this is now, high school recruiting has become a business decision. You have to make the right business decision for the future. You don't have to look right now and getting the coolest hat or getting the, biggest offer. It's for the future. How are you going to make NIL money? Does the school have NIL opportunities? Am I going to be going up? So there's a lot to go into it. We'll talk about it a ton more in weeks to come in every sport. Okay, well, so this has been On My Whistle. Matt Malatesta, Jackson DePasquale, talking recruiting. Who won the day on National Signing Day 2024? We got another signing day coming up in 2025.